The thing about humans, as Professor Dexaluri of the Interstellar Academy of Unified Sciences had noted in 17 years of teaching, was that they were relentlessly social. Every species that came through the academy had its quirks. The Velhari meditated in groups. The Sorvani communicated through harmonic vibration and got offended if you didn't hum back. The Krethna shed their outer membrane every 40 days and required private quarters during the process. But humans adopted things. It had started, as most disasters do, on an otherwise perfectly ordinary Tuesday. Mira had arrived at the academy 11 months ago as part of Earth's third student exchange cohort. She was 18 years old, small even by human standards, with dark eyes that noticed everything and a tendency to ask questions that made older faculty members stare at the ceiling and reconsider their career choices. She had been assigned a dormitory room on level 7, Wing C, alongside students from 4 other species. Within her first week, she had learned all of their names, their dietary restrictions, their sleep cycles, and their home planet holidays. She had baked something she called brownies for each of their cultural observances, modifying the recipe each time to account for species-specific biochemistry. Wing C had never had better retention rates. But it was not her dormitory neighbors who became the subject of the incident. It was the creature she found on her third day, wedged behind a heating duct on sublevel 2. She had named it Pip. Pip was, technically, a Gretheli juvenile, a small, 6-limbed mammalian species from the outer reach systems, notable for their bioluminescent patches and their classification under Academy Biological Charter 7, Section 4, as a non-sapient companion organism. Non-sapient. That was the official position. Mira had her doubts about that from approximately day 4, when Pip watched her struggle with a third-year xenophysics problem set for 40 minutes, then nudged her stylus toward the correct variable with one small, deliberate paw. She kept her doubts to herself. She kept Pip hidden. She fed Pip carefully calibrated food she synthesized in the dormitory kitchen at odd hours. She built Pip a small habitat behind her wall panel and lined it with soft material she had ordered under the listed purpose of art supplies. For 11 months, it worked. Then Vice-Chancellor Rosaith came for his quarterly contraband inspection of student quarters. Noah heard about it before Mira did. That was how it usually worked. Noah had a talent for knowing things early, a skill he attributed to being a light sleeper and living across the hall from the most socially networked human in the academy. He found Mira in the corridor outside her room, standing very still, her arms at her sides. She was looking at the door. Noah had seen Mira upset before. He had seen her frustrated, exhausted, homesick, and once furious at a lab partner who had taken credit for her work. He knew the spectrum of her expressions the way you learned anyone's face after 11 months of proximity. This was not any of those things. This was something quieter and therefore much more serious. "They took Pip," she said, without looking at him. Noah said nothing for exactly 3 seconds, choosing his words with care the way you might choose your footing on uncertain ground. "Where did they take her?" "Biological containment. Sublevel 9. A pause. "They're going to send her back to the outer reach systems. Release her into the wild." Vice-Chancellor Rosaith called her an unauthorized biological presence. Her voice was perfectly level. That was the part that worried him most. Pip has never been to the outer reach. She was born in this building. She doesn't know how to survive out there. She'd die in a week. Noah looked at the closed door. Then he looked at Mira. "Okay," he said. "Okay, what? What do you need?" Mira finally turned to look at him. Something shifted in her expression, a small recalibration, like a system rerouting around a damaged node. She had been prepared, he realized, to do this alone. The fact that he was simply here, asking what do you need, had apparently not been in her calculations. Humans were relentlessly social, yes, but the ones who had spent a long time managing alone sometimes forgot to ask for help. "I need the biological containment access logs," she said slowly. "I need to know which holding unit they put her in. I need someone who understands Academy legal charter well enough to find a procedural challenge to the seizure order. And I need," she stopped. "What?" "I need someone to help me not do something that gets me expelled." Noah nodded. "I can do all of those things," he said. "Except possibly the last one. But I'll try." What happened in the next 6 hours would later be described in 3 separate official Academy incident reports, a student union newsletter, and a legal brief filed with the Academy's Biological Ethics Oversight Committee. Noah started with the access logs. He was, by training, a systems architecture student. He understood how information moved through the Academy's networks the way a surgeon understood anatomy. He didn't break anything. He didn't need to. He simply found the 3 administrative pathways that were technically accessible to enrolled students for academic research purposes and followed them to their logical destination. Holding Unit 7, Sublevel 9, sealed under Vice Chancellor Rosathe's personal authorization code. Then he went to Semvrathi, a 4th-year Sorvani law student who owed him a favor from the incident with the harmonic resonance lab and the accidentally destroyed wall panel that they had agreed never to discuss. Semvrathi was, by Sorvani standards, young and untested. By any other standard, she was terrifyingly competent. She looked at the seizure order for 40 seconds. "This is wrong," she said, in the flat, certain tone of someone identifying a mathematical error. "Tell me more." Biological Charter 7, Section 4 defines non-sapient companion organisms as species demonstrating no evidence of problem-solving behavior above Category 2 complexity. She set the document down. The seizure order cites this classification, but it was filed without a current cognitive assessment. The last assessment of Gretheli juveniles in the Academy database is 9 years old. She looked up. They cannot legally remove an organism from student care without a current assessment confirming the classification still applies. Noah stared at her. "Can we challenge it?" "We can do more than challenge it. We can file for an immediate hold on the removal order pending reassessment." She paused. "It will not make the Vice Chancellor happy." "No," Noah agreed. "It will not." "Good," said Semvrathi, and she began to type. The hold request reached the Academy's Biological Ethics Oversight Committee at the same moment Mira arrived at Sublevel 9. She had not gone to break Pip out. She wanted to be clear about that. Later, when she gave her statement, she had gone because she needed Pip to know that she hadn't been abandoned. That was all. She stood outside the sealed containment bay and spoke quietly through the ventilation grill, told Pip that it was going to be okay, that Noah was working on it, that she wasn't alone. There was a soft, luminescent glow from inside the grill, a small sound, low and tonal, that Mira had learned over 11 months to read. "I know," it meant, as close as she could translate it. "I know you came." That was when the Academy-wide alert sounded. Not because of Mira. Not directly. The alert sounded because the hold request, when it hit the Ethics Committee system, triggered an automated compliance review, which flagged the 9-year-old cognitive assessment, which cross-referenced it against the updated Galactic Sapience Index that had been quietly revised 14 months ago and never properly integrated into the Academy's own classification database. Under the revised index, Gretheli juveniles demonstrating Category 3 or above problem-solving behavior were not classified as companion organisms. They were classified as sapient minors requiring legal guardianship. The Academy's containment of Pip was not a seizure of unauthorized biological material. It was the unlawful detention of a sapient minor. The lockdown was automatic. Standard protocol for any facility holding a sapient being without proper legal authorization. Every exit sealed. Every transfer halted. The Academy's legal compliance system, old and thorough and completely indifferent to administrative embarrassment, began generating documentation at a rate of approximately 40 pages per minute. Noah found Mira on Sublevel 9 40 minutes later, sitting cross-legged on the floor outside the containment bay. The door was still sealed. The lockdown had frozen all bay controls pending legal review, but the ventilation grill was open, and Pip's small, 6-limbed form was pressed against it from the inside, one paw extended through the gap, resting in Myra's hand. Semvrathi says the Vice Chancellor is currently in a meeting with 3 members of the Ethics Committee and the Academy's Chief Legal Officer, Noah said, sitting down beside her. Apparently no one told him the Sapience Index was updated. Apparently no one told anyone, Mira said. To be fair, it was a very quiet update. Pip solved my xenophysics problem on day 4, Mira said. She reorganized my file system by subject priority when I wasn't looking. She learned to operate my dormitory lights within a week. A pause. She's been sapient this entire time. They just never looked. Noah was quiet for a moment. They looked now, he said. The door unsealed 4 hours later, after the Ethics Committee issued a provisional guardianship designation pending full cognitive assessment. The assessment, conducted by a specialist brought in from the Galactic Sapience Institute, took 2 days. Pip scored in the upper third of Category 4. Vice-Chancellor Rose filed a formal apology that his legal team had clearly written for him, using language so carefully structured it contained no actual acknowledgement of fault. The Ethics Committee issued a mandate requiring all Academy biological classifications to be cross-referenced against the current Sapience Index within 60 days. Mira was granted provisional legal guardianship. She walked out of the administrative office with Pip riding on her left shoulder, bioluminescent patches cycling through colors that Noah had learned, by that point, to read as something close to satisfaction. "You know," he said, walking beside her, "you technically caused a campus-wide lockdown." "I was just talking through a grill," Mira said. Semvrathi filed the challenge. "Because you asked her to. Because you told me what you needed." Mira glanced at him sideways. Pip made a quiet tonal sound. "Thank you," Mira said. Simple, direct, the way she said most things. "That's what I'm here for," Noah said. Later, in the student union's unofficial newsletter, the incident would be summarized in a single line that circulated across 3-star systems and became, in certain academic circles, something close to a warning. Do not take something a human has claimed as family. They will not raise their voice. They will not make threats. They will simply begin making calls, and they will not stop until the entire system has been forced to look at what it chose not to see.